Hi, I'm David Dobson. Welcome to Conversations. Today, my guest is Dr. Lenora Butler. We will talk about her experience setting up and managing a successful nonprofit organization. Lenora is the Executive Director of Volunteer Readers Program, VRP, a not-for-profit literacy program which is founded in 2009. VRP volunteers work in Toronto schools with students who are struggling with reading. Lenora obtained her PhD in psychology from University of Toronto. Prior to VRP, Lenora spent 17 years in academia teaching educational psychology and conducting research on depression in children. This was followed by 15 years in marketing research, including a full-service market research firm. On a side note, about 25 years ago, Lenora hired me as a research analyst for her market research company in Toronto. I was in very early stages of my career and was fortunate enough to be given the opportunity with this position. It's a great pleasure to have you with me today, Lenora.
It's a pleasure to be invited. Thank you, David. Nice to see you.
Start off, Lenora, would you share what motivated you to start a nonprofit that supports early literacy among school children?
Happily, it was total serendipity. Picture my husband and I about 15 years ago enjoying a cup of coffee in the morning and reading the Globe and Mail. And the article from our Ontario testing of grades 3, 6, and 9 children in math and reading was published, as it is every year. It's kind of a standardized test that they use to see how the school kids are doing. And the implication, as they were discussing the results, even though I'm sure this isn't explicitly what they meant, but the implication was that if you came from a diverse neighborhood and a school with not a lot of opportunities because it's highly transitory and or high immigrant population, chances are you're going to be struggling with reading. And I thought, they were implying that these kids come and their brains aren't as good as our kids, which is ludicrous. So I got within about 3 days, I had a full head of steam on it. I called the director of education for the Toronto School Board and said, I'm quite sure this isn't what was intended, but I know we can demonstrate that they're just plain wrong. Yeah. So if I got some of my friends together, can you point me in the direction of a school where we could work with grades 1 and 2 youngsters who are struggling with reading and just in helping them, hopefully, over the course of a year, get them caught up to the rest of the schools, the rest of the children in their class. So a school was given to me, and then I had to find friends. So I called everybody I knew, got 20 people together.
And that was that probably not very difficult for you because you know so many people.
Well, I really, I picked on a lot of them, but they came with me and we went to, it was called Gateway School in Flemington Park, which is a very tough neighborhood in Toronto, one that people in the city know about and probably wouldn't spend too much time after dark in. And we worked in Gateway School that year. We used a nearby school as a control, but we're using that term really loosely in terms of experimental design. And by the end of the year, we had helped 40 children catch up with class versus the other school with the matched set of kids, maybe improving a few levels in what they call DRE, which is a reading measure that the teachers use for elementary school children. So the next year, the control school wanted to be part of the program. So I said, okay, and I found some more friends. And and within 5 years, we were in 8 schools and had about 50 volunteers. And it was getting to be a whole lot to me. I'm doing this as a volunteer. We're all volunteers. Right. And we needed somebody to help. So I then set up the charity and got us registered with Canada Revenue Agency. And that way we could do fundraising and help to pay for the expenses that had been coming out of pocket at that point. And since then, I guess just pre-pandemic, we were up to 25 schools with about 200 volunteers. And we do this on a budget of about $20,000 a year. So, or sorry, $50,000 a year. So that's how it started. And we still only have one half-time employee. She does everything that she and I run the thing. So that's sort of how it all got started. Who knew that 14 years later, I'd still be going strong with it.
You are the founder of Volunteers Readers Program. You just mentioned VRP. How did you go about setting up this non-profit organization?
I called everybody I knew when I decided I was going to register it as a charity because we had a fundraise. I called everybody that I knew in not-for-profits. And I did know several people, fortunately, and they were so helpful. They told me the best way to approach Canada Revenue, the things to say and not to say, the forms to fill out and not to fill out,
Right.
and that it would probably take about 6 months to a year to get approval.
Okay.
They helped me so well
Nice.
that it took 6 weeks. And in fact, I found the charities directorate at CRA really helpful. They
nice.
really are good people. And if you are straight with them, they'll be straight with you and tell you, know, this won't work, but that will. So it went through very, very quickly, and we became a registered charity. And then you can legitimately raise funds and issue receipts, which is really a way of saying thank you to people for taking. For being generous. And our fundraising month now, actually, the month of February, we call it Love for Literacy Month.
Okay.
And the whole month of February, we shoot for around $25,000. The rest we get, the rest of our 50,000 budget we get from foundations.
So that is me next kind of a good segue. How do you fund your nonprofit?
Well, from donations and foundations, and that's really it. And everybody is, as I said, except Christina, our managing coordinator, is a volunteer. She works half-time, so obviously she represents a chunk of our annual fundraising, but we keep our expenses to a real minimum, because we go into the schools to read with the youngsters, but we use the library's books. We take some of our own books if they are special and things like phonemic awareness and phonetics. Schools don't have enough in that regard, so we buy our own for that. But we also have they're grade 1 kids. They love stickers. We are really liberal. I keep $M in business with stickers. So, you know, I don't even know how much I spend. I could look, but I can't tell you off the top of my head how much we spend a year on stickers and record cards. The other thing is, because our volunteers, we don't try to match the children one-to-one with volunteers. And I'll explain after, I think, why we don't do that. But so the children come twice a week to us for half an hour each time, one-to-one. The volunteers, on the other hand, have to commit to once every 2 weeks at a minimum. But when they go on holidays, like for the whole winter, for example, my friends go south. They never work with us. If I said you have to stay here, you can't go on your holidays anymore. They have a life, right? They're
absolutely.
So I set it up so that we had a child may see 3, even 4 readers over the course of 2 weeks. And in that time, then obviously the child's developing and finding things that we find things about the youngster that we wouldn't know if they weren't sharing notes. So I started, the kids call these their sticker books. We call them their record books.
Oh, nice.
The kids put the stickers in on the pages, but we're writing to the person who's going to read with them next. We just finished this book. He's struggling with B versus D. Practice ST, can't make the sound properly, and things like that. And in the meantime, they're very carefully picking out stickers and slathering them all over the page. So that's how the volunteers know what the child is up to. They take a few minutes at the beginning and just take a quick look at what he's been doing with the other volunteers, and then they start from there and move on. And it works. It's been very successful, surprisingly.
That's good. No, it's good to hear that. And thank you for sharing this. So obviously you see that there's so much need out there. So how do you identify schools that need help in improving literacy?
What I did in the early stages, and this was probably the first 10 years, 9-10 years, when a number of volunteers from a certain part of the city filled out the form on our website and said they wanted to join, I would look for what we call model schools in Toronto. These are schools that have very diverse populations. They struggle, they get extra benefits because their population socioeconomically is relatively challenged compared to many other parts of the city. So I would look for the closest one so they don't have to drive halfway in. I mean, you know how big Toronto is, sprawled all over the place. And in the middle of winter, we have to be there at 8:15, 8:30 in the morning. It's rush hour too. So that was how, so I would phone a principal and say, we have this program. I'm selling it on the phone. But you can call these other principals who have the program now as references. And I don't think in all those years, as we grew up to 25, I don't think 5 principals said no. So I mean, the kids are struggling and they do need the help. So it's not a tough sell. It's not as though I had another school phone this morning. This year, I started out by offering the program to only 13 schools because we'd gone virtual during the pandemic. We couldn't go into the schools. No volunteers could. And the kids weren't there half the time. They were at home. Went to the schools that we had been with the aid of volunteers I have. But since then, we've grown to, that's since September. We are now in 23 schools as of today.
Wow.
And I have 9 as of this morning waiting for the program. So we're just trying hard to find volunteers to join the program and help us in the schools.
So that will lead me to the next question, because initially when you started with your friends, and they came up, but now you have so many schools. So how do you recruit your volunteers?
It's mainly been word of mouth.
Okay.
People enjoy it. They hear about it, they call me, or they go on the website. Very rarely does somebody say, I found your website. It's not the kind of thing that people are looking for or going to stumble across. So it's usually word of mouth. And that means that I know they're going to be solid people because they're already friends with one of our readers.
Right.
So that's how it's grown. But this year, because the demand is so high and we had to grow so rapidly, I've actually worked with the Toronto Public Library, which is fabulous. We've got a wonderful library system here. And all the branches of the library that are in diverse neighborhoods, challenged neighborhoods around schools that would be called model schools. We just in January put up posters recruiting, and we've had quite a few new people come in. But once they come in, they have to do their police reference check, right? Everybody has to, for vulnerable sector, and that takes the police services, Toronto Police Services is quite a bit behind. So it can take 6 to 8 weeks for that to come through. But then we train them. We have videos that we work with. We do Zoom online training. And then we get the school set up and we get going. So it can take 2 months from the time a school says, can we have the program, until I can produce volunteers.
So you mentioned that you have about 200 volunteers and looking for more volunteers. So how do you manage so many volunteers and coordinate their scheduling with various schools?
Well, that's Christina's job, and she is fabulous at it. But from working in marketing research and other businesses as well, that really your employees are your number one asset. You want to create a culture that they feel comfortable in. You want to create an environment in which they feel they're achieving their own goals and targets and feeling a sense of achievement each day. I brought the same philosophy I had at Butler Research to this. And so the volunteers are our employees, so to speak. How do we keep them involved? We have weekly news that goes out to them, just to them. They have to log in. I was going to say, if you visit our website, www.volunteerreaders.ca, you will see quite a bit about the organization. And you'll be solicited to give some money. But if you're a volunteer, you can log in, and about 85% of the website is in that area. So it's loaded with resources on teaching kids how to read, with videos on how to bring phonics and phonemic awareness into your training into your reading session with youngsters. All kinds of tips, books, articles, you name it, we got it in there. And people really feel a part of the organization. We have online Zooms. Well, that's redundant. We have Zoom get-togethers with 50 or 60 at a time, especially maybe the schools in an area. So they feel part of a team. They know the other readers, volunteers, even though they may not be working on the same day, they know the other volunteers at the school. There are just a number of ways to keep people involved, and most of our volunteers stay with us. We have some who've been with since we started.
Wow, that's a long time.
Some of them volunteer 2-3 times a week because they love reading with the kids. Others come once every 2 weeks regularly. For some, it's not their cup of tea, and they just say, I love the organization, but reading with a 6-year-old is not what I like to do right now.
Probably require a lot of patience, but the reward is also very amazing for those who are involved with these children's life. And I guess children also kind of know these volunteers. They kind of look forward coming them to the school and reading with them. So it's kind of a nice.
And the schools love it, David. They really, really appreciate the volunteers
Yeah.
being there, and they can see
Yeah.
how much the children are benefiting.
Yeah.
So the teachers are on
Yeah.
side. It's
Yeah.
a very rewarding kind of
Yeah.
reinforcing
Yeah.
kind of environment for the
Yeah.
volunteers to go into.
Yeah.
It's rough to it would be
Yeah.
really hard to go
Yeah.
and spend 2.5 hours in an elementary school with
Yeah.
6-year-olds who are excited about learning
Yeah.
how to read words and go
Right.
home in a funk. I mean, you
Right.
really can't.
Yeah.
It gives
Yeah.
you a lift. It really does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that leads me a final question to you, Lenora. What advice would you give to people who are wanting to set up a nonprofit?
Wow. If you have an idea, follow your passion. If you have an idea that you feel will help,
Yeah.
when you start to explore it,
Yeah.
and other similar opportunities
Yeah.
in either your environment or even
Yeah.
around the world,
Yeah.
you'll build the idea and
Yeah.
then just reach out for help from everybody you can find who knows
Mhm.
something or might know something about it,
Mhm.
and involve your friends, because word of mouth is a fabulous way to connect with a
Mhm.
multitude of people you don't
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
But really, if
Yeah.
it's something you're passionate about,
Yeah.
you won't fail. You
Yeah.
just, you can't help but be
Yeah.
successful because
Yeah.
your drive will see it through.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for your time, Lenora. I wish you all the best on your retirement and the amazing work you do at the Volunteers Readers Program.
Thanks,
Thank you.
David. It was a pleasure to see you again, and I very much appreciate your inviting me to take part in your conversation.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Lenora. Bye.